me, Charlie Pascoe, and his wife Irene, and they're going to tell us some of the stories that they remember about the early Burnett area. And with Cess's help, we hope to learn some of the history of this district.
Charlie, your early ancestors.
Well, my father's father came from Cornwall, England, and he was a baker by trade. I believe he was about 24-year-old when he came out here. And after he was out here, he married a girl from Ireland named Annie Madden. And however, my father was born in the Valley, Brisbane. He left there when he was 12, and as far as I know, he never ever went back. Later on, he had one brother, Frank Pascoe, and he was drowned in the Burnett River at Mundubra. It wasn't called Mundubra then, but that was on a droving trip. When my father left on a droving trip, travelled right up North Queensland everywhere, but a big part of his early life he spent in the Burnett. He was a crack brumby runner. He run brumbies on Rawbell for years, and he ended up in shooting the last of the brumbies on Rawbell. Now, my mother used to ride from Rawbell to Eidvold. In those days she rode by side saddle. Now my eldest sister, when she was only a baby, my mother was known to have rode from Rawbell to Eidvold carrying her as a baby, but on side saddle those days. However,
how many miles would that be?
That was my elder sister.
How many miles would that be?
How many miles would it have been?
How many miles from Rawbell to Mundubra?
Eidvold.
Oh, Eidvold.
Oh, say 40-odd miles.
40-odd miles.
Shortcut those days. Then later on, there was another baby born, another daughter, and she lived all right, both sisters, but they had a son, but he died at 5 days old. Then later on, another son, and 4 years later, another one, which is me. You follow? Yeah. That was, what you call it?
How did they get on for confinements? How did they get on for confinements? Your mother?
Confinements?
Where were the babies?
Oh, well, she had 5 of her family.
Yes, but where were they born? Who attended her when they were born?
All born in Eidvold.
At the hospital?
Well, I presume there mightn't have been a hospital in those days, but I don't. But it was born in Eidvold. As a matter of fact, my mother's sister was Mrs. Bowldry in Eidvold, and she would have brought more babies into the Upper Burnett than anybody else. Mrs. Bowldry, that was my mother's sister. But that's more than I know now. But as I say, when my father, brumby running and all that, and then at one part he had a horse team carting from Mount Perry to Eidvold.
Carting what?
Carting what, John? What did he cart?
Ore.
Groceries.
Ore. Oh, that in the mining days. And then 10 mile out of Eidvold, this beat you, there was country cut up in 160-acre blocks. Now, it was nearly in the middle of Never Never, but I found out since that the government cut them up for the teamsters, for their spell horses. My father selected one, Harry Smith selected another, Tom Chapman selected another, and that is about 10 mile out of Eidvold, about 4 miles from Serratus. Okay, my father lived there for a few years, and that's where I was more or less brought up.
Yeah.
When I was 7, incidentally, in 1912, I don't know for what reason, but my father decided to shift to Maryborough. Now, Muscat Flat was the first stagecoach spell place, the coaches that come into the Burnett. My mother were named Grout, and they were all great horsemen, and Jimmy Grout was a cousin of my mother's. He had the spell place at Muscat Flat. Well, we left here, I was 7. My mother drove 2 horses in a dray, no motor cars those days, a dray. My father rode some spare horses. Now, when we arrived at Muscat Flat, it would have to be getting towards Christmas time in 1912. But I saw in a school circular a reunion there a few years ago where I started school on the 26th of January 1913. That was just 1913. Yeah. Okay, we must have been there 3 or 4 months, perhaps.
Where was this access,
perhaps
please?
shorter than that.
You're assuming.
My father then, we all shifted on to Maryborough, where he bought a corner shop in Newtown, Maryborough, on the opposite corner to the White Lion Hotel. And as far as I can remember, we stopped there about 12 months. I started school at Muscat Flat on the 26th of January 1913, but it must have been only for a few months. But when we went to Maryborough, I went to the boys' school there. After about 12 months, my father sold that shop and shifted back this way 32 mile to Aramara.
Where's that, please?
That's where I went to school, or well, possibly 18 months, 20 months, until the school closed.
That place just this side of Maryborough?
Yeah, 32 miles this side of Maryborough. Then when the school closed there, the next school was 5 miles away, Brewina. Yeah. So I had to catch a train about 9 o'clock of the morning to go to Brewina and go to school, but then we had to leave the school at about 3 o'clock before the other kids to go down 200 or 300 yards the train to come back to Aramara. When I was 10 and a half, I left school. My father got a job out on a station doing some... As a matter of fact, the work he was doing would be he was splitting shingles, putting a shingle roof on the place. I got a job on a mine. Now, this beats everybody. I started work on a mine at 10 and a half. And of course, oh, lion bugger, you know, the kid at 10 and a half down a mine. I wasn't down a mine. I was leading a big old draft horse out so far, a whip horse. A whip horse. Lead it out there to pull the ore up. while the bloke on top of the mine was emptying it, I turned the old horse round and hooked it onto the collar to let the empty bucket go down, turn the horse round, and then hook onto the swingle bar when he said, right, pull the next bucket up. Right. I was there about 5 months on that job.
What was his wages?
Your wages, what wages would you been getting then? What's wages?
5 shillings a week. Then I went to Rockhampton. My people shifted to Rockhampton. Incidentally, I don't know what happened to the dray and all that, but they bought a very nice sulky to go to Rockhampton. When I got to Rockhampton, I got a job, I was 11 then, stock riding and tar boy on one of the big stations in Queensland, Bowen Downs. That's outside of Aramac. Incidentally, I wasn't on the head station. I was sent out 25 mile to the outstation, Reedy Creek. We would muster perhaps 2 days, 2.5 days, and we would be landmarking for a day or 2 days landmarking. When I wasn't mustering, all I was tar here and tar there, tar here and tar there. Okay, I had my 12th birthday out at Aramac on Bowen Downs or the outstation, came back into Rockhampton and got a job droving. Incidentally,
It says, just move this way a bit, please.
Incidentally, I bought my first horse at auction in Mackay. I was 12-year-old. Came back to Rockhampton and got another job droving back to Mackay. Now, this beats them all. When I tell them I was working on a mine at 10.5, my next job was in a lawyer's office, a law clerk. I can quote cases, a cattle case for instance, where I put in 4 days in the Supreme Court in Rockhampton, only sitting at a back table. My job was to take the briefs up every morning to the court and sit there in case, and I had to go back to the office or anything like that. 4 days. This case was over 100 head of heifers, Hereford heifers. People at Gladstone named Kessel bought 100 head of heifers of Beak and Sons at Marlborough, took delivery and paid for them. And at the same time signed up for another 100 head, forward delivery. Now, as far as I can remember, it was around 2 months ahead for delivery. Now, cattle, that's the time that cattle went right down flat. At the end of the 2 months, whatever was their time to take delivery, they didn't take delivery, and Beak and Sons sued Kessel. Now, Kessel had a man in Gladstone, W.P. Mellifont, solicitor, acting for him. The other mob had Reedar and Sidney Jones, other solicitors acting for them. The firm I worked for, Hobler and Powell, were town agents for the Gladstone solicitor. So when the case came on, we had a barrister from Brisbane and a local barrister. We were the defendants in the case. But the plaintiffs, they also had a top barrister from Brisbane and a local. My job of a morning was to go up to the Supreme Court at 10 o'clock or so with the briefs and sit at a table and wait and listen all day to what was going on. Right. The plaintiffs called 4 witnesses. I'm not sure whether the plaintiff or the defendant, I think it was the plaintiff, called 4 witnesses. Sandy McDonald, a well-known butcher at Gracemere, an aged man. Another well-known cattle dealer. And another well-known cattle man. 4, I forget who the 4th one was. Right. The first man came in as a witness when he got up. He gave his pedigree, he'd been dealing for 40 years in cattle, he knew all about the value of cattle, all about the cattle. Now, our case was that he found too many cows among the first 100 head of heifers he bought. That was why he rejected the next lot. But of course the world knew why he rejected them. The cattle went flat to the... They were valued at 10 shillings a head. That's all he could get from them. So he wouldn't pay £10. Right, as I say, the first man that they called, he, what do you call him? And the barrister jumped up and said, questioned him a little bit. Yes, he knew when a heifer was a cow and all this and that. And the barrister jumped up, he said, what do you maintain? He said, I maintain when she has the first calf, she's a cow. Up jumped the barrister, said if she was 6-year-old, which could be before she had the first calf, would she be a heifer? Oh no, out she went, and they never asked him one other question. You follow? Yeah. Well, that case went on for 4 days. Had it have been you and I, it would have lasted 10 minutes. But these were very wealthy squatters, both in, and the barristers. I remember that leading barrister that we employed then was 100 guineas a day then. And of course, they made sure the case lasted. Right, yeah. But however, then after my father died in Rockhampton.
What was the result of the case? What was the result of the case?
The other fellows won it. I mean, the plaintiff, Beacon's son, won the case. Yeah. My father died not long, and I went out west working. I worked on prairie outside of Claremont. That was sheep and cattle. And then, this was about 1918, 19, after the end of the First World War. As a matter of fact, when the First World War ended, I remember the day very well. I rode from Marlborough to Rockhampton, or within 5 miles of Rockhampton. 10-chain stock route there. We were coming back with the droving plant, and every person went along the main road, perhaps 9-chain over, would pull up. There might have been one motor car, not many motor cars those days, but no matter buggies or sulkies or riding, they would sing out to us, "War's over, war's over." They'd heard it. That was the 11th of November 1918. However, after I went back out west, started reading the paper, the railway's coming to Ideville. The railway's coming. Previous to that, it was Gain that was the nearest, you see. The railway's coming to Ideville. I was getting on towards 17 then. I wanted to come back to Ideville. So, used to get £1 a week in me tucker those days. That was station wages at my age. And
when your father died, your mother, where did she finish? When your father died, your mother, where did your mother stay when your father died? Where did your mother stay when your father died?
In Rockhampton. We had a little property there, 25-acre farm right on the edge of Rockhampton on this side. We had that there when he died. And when I decided to come back to Ideville, we had a half a dozen house cows or something there. When I went out west to save up a bit of money to come back to Ideville, I said up 25 or 30 pounds. Came back here and back into Rockhampton, getting ready to come over. I went to a cattle sale in Rockhampton. Those days they weren't at Gracemere, they were out at the showground, has been for years. I'd been attending horse sales there for years out there. However, I bought 13 head of heifers, milking shortle. Later on, they more or less got Illawarras, didn't they? But there were no such thing as Illawarras nor Friesians those days. They were milking shorter. I bought 13 head of heifers from 20 months to 2-year-old. Bred by a man named Ma at Mount Larkham. Very good condition, reds and roans, and one blue heifer among them. I'll tell you a bit of story later on about the blue heifer. That's why I mention her now. 12 shillings a head. So I had 13 and we had 5 or 6 at home. A day or so before I was ready to come away, incidentally, a 12-year-old boy that lived further down the street, he was coming with me. That was better than going to school. Of course, no wages, he's tucker and a horse to ride. However, a pound sale in Rockhampton. I went, the pound sale was out near the, what you call them, and a few horses, and there was a white heifer in the pound that had been running around the streets, very, very good condition, a beef shorthorn heifer. Somebody bid it 5 shillings. To make a long story short, I bought the white heifer for £1. It does seem funny, I bought her out of the pound sale for £1, but that's how it could have been 10, 15 shillings, but £1 was my bid and I got the white heifer. Then I had to take her out home about 3 miles, and when I'm ready to leave over there, I had 20 head of cattle. Looking through a notebook there a while ago, I see where I went the first day to Archer, the next day to Bejewel, and so. When I get down to Raglan, I went to the local butcher there and asked him did he want to buy a killer. I explained where I hadn't stolen her or something, because she was newly branded with Heart 8, which is the Rockhampton pound brand. So he knew I didn't just steal it, you see. I just don't know what I asked. I might have asked £3. I'm not sure of that. But I sold it to him for £2.50. But I had a deliverer, possibly half, 3/4 of a mile up the road to the slaughter yard, go back to the shop, and he paid me, and I came on here. It took me a fortnight or more to get here. Now, when I got here, I was only 7 when I left, and I didn't know a big lot about bush, you know what I mean. But I found this block of country where we had, but all the wire was gone, had been stolen by other fellows and so forth. And what am I going to do with these 19 head of cattle? So,
just a minute. Now you were saying to me that you still owned, your parents still owned this property in Eidsvold. You're saying to me now, just a minute, righto, you came back to the block that your father had?
Yes,
right.
It had a house on it.
Yes.
But all the wire, all the wire was gone out of the fence. So
and it was freehold?
Freehold.
Freehold, oh, it's freehold.
How much to freehold it?
How much to freehold it?
£half a crown an acre, those days. Incidentally, he had 2 160-acre blocks. He got an additional area afterwards, but that was £half a crown an acre, so that was okay. I got some adjustment. Now, if you just excuse me a second.
Right?
Yes, well then.
You had a milk run in Rockhampton.
Oh yes, that was me milk. What you call it?
Yeah, the milk run
but that's all be Rockhampton when cut out.
Tell me about this.
Just a second. I put them out there on adjustment, 3 a head per week.
Who with?
If I?
Who with?
Mrs. Harris.
Which Mrs. Harris was that?
You don't remember Darky Harris?
No.
Oh, they were a long time before the settlement scheme. They came out of a circus in the early parts, the Harrises, but nothing to do with these Harrises about here now. But as I say, when I came back here later on about this milk run, the main camp had shifted from Mandubra onto that hill over there, and there was roughly 60 people there, families and so forth, and I started a milk run with these heifers that I'd brought down from Rockhampton that I had on adjustment.
Milking by hand?
You'd be milking by hand, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. But when I came back here, a bit ahead of my story, this Upper Burnett settlement scheme had started, and on Langley Flat up there, as I'm coming down from Rockhampton, I met a woman, 5 or 6 kids in a buggy, driving a couple of horses, a husband with a mob of horses over there, and he was within about half a mile of the block he'd drawn at a sappy tender. Well then, a little bit later on, the next door neighbour was August Brisky, he was just married, Augie Brisky was, and I gave him these heifers. They were all calving out at Horse Gully. He started dairying. In those days, put up a few saplings round, saw off with a no chainsaw those days for the separator block. At the end of 12 months, when they were all starting to calve again, I wanted them for this milk run. When I went up to get them, Mrs. Brisky, just previous to that, had twin babies, twin girls, and she couldn't rear them, and she was giving one of them away. And he didn't like just asking me, he must have asked me, could I leave one of these cows behind? And I left this blue heifer I mentioned earlier there. For another 12 months I suppose she was there, perhaps longer or not. That woman today will be 69, and she'll tell you, if it hadn't have been for Charlie Pascoe, she don't know where she would have been today. That a mother was given away and don't know where she would have ended up, but she'll tell you that story herself. But however, that's the story. I milked cows on this block and run the milk here. Eventually, I run a part of the gang shifted 5 mile up to Cynthia, and I would run up there once a day with milk.
This gang you're talking about was the railway line, was it? The gang you're talking about was
yes.
railway line.
Building this railway.
Yes.
Oh yeah, of course, no motor then. I could take you over and show you where they stalled all the horses. The posts are still there where they 10 or 15 draft horses there. And, oh yeah, on that hill there. And there was a government store there. You could buy anybody then. But however, later on, when you talk about milk runs, I had the first milk run in Krakow for some years. We're in Krakow, when Krakow first opened up. That, I can tell you that later on. So I've had milk runs at Rockhampton, Serratadas and Krakow. That I would just like to tell you, droving, when I was here I got a job. I can show it all in notebooks in there, the days and dates of everything, where I went back nearly to Claremont I got a job picking up 1,000 head of cows and calves, and they went nearly to Dalby, just this side of Dalby, but then I'd get a job, my own horse, myself, mustering couple of horses and get 10 shillings a day, which was big money, you see. I got a job one time to muster some horses up here at Trillinga, wild horse, well half, all over this country. There was an Indian buyer coming. Now, incidentally, the man that owned them wasn't a horseman, didn't know much about horses, and
Who was that?
a man named Hamilton, racing to these Alan Hamilton, and a man named Hegarty, Alf Jarvis, the publican in Idle, there was no taxis in Idle, but the publican had a car. He run the Indian horse buyer out here, and I had to do most of the drafting and all this and that. Then he had to come back again tomorrow. We had to go and get some more horses later on for tomorrow. And I asked Alf Jarvis, could I get a ride with him, about 3 miles from there, down here to Serratus, because I had a way of getting back home and leaving my horse there for tomorrow. On the road down, I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, Alf Jarvis and the Indian buyer was in front, and I just said, are these horses going to India, Mr. Hegarty? Oh, yes, boy, he said. Later on, another 3 or 4 months yet. Oh, yes. My dear, I'd like to go with them. You would you? Someone like that. My word. Now, I didn't know this till probably 2 or 3 years afterwards. After I got out of Serratus, Mr. Hegarty, the horse buyer, said to Al Jarvis, that's a smart lad, is he a good horseman? And Al Jarvis wrapped me right up as the best horseman in the district, but I'll tell you why. He had a horse racing in Brisbane, won quite a few races, and he also bred a few. He broke a full sister of what broke in, and she started throwing the jockeys. He said to me in town one day, Charlie, I'll give you £1 if you can quieten this filly. There's £1. And she'd already broken in and all that. I used to get £1 to break wild 5 and 6 year old horses in, and he was getting £1 just to quieten them. Oh yes. So I brought her out here, and she wasn't bad at all. But I took her back on a fortnight afterwards, jumped on her bareback and did everything to her. And he won races with her after she was quiet. That's what made him think I was the best horseman. But he said to Hegarty, I didn't know this till years afterwards. So the next day, Mr. Hegarty said to me, you were saying yesterday, lad, you'd like to go to India with these horses. You see, he'd found out a little bit more on his road to Hydra. And I said, yes. Well, he said, when I get back to Sydney, he said, I'll find out. He said, we might be able to get you a job. They don't leave, he said, till about the end of October or something like that. Well, this is good. So he got in touch with him afterwards, and he said, now you'll have to get a passport, get your photo taken and all this and that. And right, now we loaded these horses in Idwell in trucks to Pinkenbar. Other horses came to Pinkenbar, but the boat started from Newcastle, and we had perhaps a half a dozen broken in saddle horses on it to get to Brisbane. We loaded horses at Pinkenbar, then go to Gladstone, load more horses there, then go to Townsville and load more horses there. Incidentally, at Townsville, they're loaded out of cattle trucks on the side of the window, out of them. A boatload of horses, approximately 750, might be 10, 20, either ways, but 750 you'd say was a boatload of horses. But then we'd have enough feed for those horses to last them 4 or 5 months. Then they'd have to fill her up with water to give her enough weight. So don't think them 750 horses, they had to fill the boat up with water. Then 30 days, well no, 30 days from Brisbane. Been about 25 days from Townsville, you see, time we'd over there. Well, that's okay. 4 other grooms besides me and the boss, a man named Tom Shortus. Tom Shortus was a man, well, hitting 50, a bachelor man, highly educated man, but he wasn't a horseman. He was a salesman and all that. Incidentally, he was a brother-in-law of Hegarty's, that's how he got the job. But however, he'd been going for a few years. Now, all the grooms, bar one, that goes over on them boats, come back on the first boat. It could be a day, a week, a month before there's another boat coming back. I saw them there a month. I saw them there only a couple of days. Right. I was the bloke that was kept back. So I was 2IC, the boss and me. Now on these boats, you're a groom, I'm a groom. You're on top deck with everything. You might have 80 or 90 horses, or 100 bloody horses. I might only have 50 way down in a coal hole somewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah. And however, there was a black crew on board that you would be the groom to look after those 50, 70, 80 horses, but you had 2 men to help you. You were the boss. You didn't do any of the work, but you had to see it was done. You make very sure they're fed and watered. They're watered in big 2-gallon buckets put in the feed box. And you make sure that nobody ever takes an empty bucket away from a horse. That's one of your jobs, to make sure. Bloke said, why? Well, the horse might want more. Always take a full bucket away. You follow what I mean?
Yeah. They'd be full.
Always, never take an empty bucket away from a horse. Always take a full bucket. The horse might want more, but he couldn't tell you. But however, the story goes that I was kept there. Of these horses we're buying, they're all ordered. Over half of them, possibly 2/3 of them, to the British government, imperial government. The others to native states. They've all got their own army. There's Bikaner, Gwalior, and Jaipur, and all them have got, we might have 60 or 70 for Bikaner, what you call them. And when we get to Calcutta, well, those horses have got to be trimmed, they've got to be got into condition. Any horses coming from the south are all very fat horses. Queensland horses were the best horses that ever went to India, but they were the poorest horses, because nearly all they left here at the end of winter, and bloody droughts and cold, you see. And you couldn't sell a poor horse in India, you had to have a fat horse. So if they didn't land fat, well, you had a fat one. Right. We'd have 50, 60 broken in saddle horses for private sale. You're an Indian, not an Indian, you're an Englishman out there in the British Army. You're an officer. And of course polo, pig sticking, sport. You want to buy a horse. Occasionally your wife's coming out from England and she wants a horse or something. Well, apart from all these horses in the depot, on the other side of the road we had private stables. 50, 60, 70 horses there, all broken in horses that we bought here. Right. A buyer comes, a lot of them are Rajas, but the Rajas would buy more than half of them, but the other private officers would buy one, you know what I mean, or two. Well, the story goes there. You're an officer come down, you come and they'd say, oh, there's different shippers there besides me, of course. Incidentally, when I'm ahead of my story. Yes. When I put in the season over there, riding these horses for the sale, when I came back, was ready to come back here, Tom Shorters came down to the boat to see me off, and they brought down a case of tea, a case of cigars and something else, and the books for the bosses in Sydney. All the books, you see. He couldn't come. He'd be a fortnight later. He had to go up to Delhi for some business, some orders for next year or something. When I got to Sydney, Hegarty's met me at the boat and took me out to Pymble, kept me there a week, took me all over Sydney, took me to the Sydney yearling sales. Incidentally, the first Spearfelt yearlings were sold at that sale, the first yearling sale of the Spearfelts. But however, they kept me there for a week. I came home. I was only home here approximately 10 days or 12 days. I was finished with India, you see. And I get a telegram from Hegarty's to say that Tom Shorters passed away. I forget today whether he said Delhi or Calcutta. The shock of my life. When I left him that day, he was the healthiest looking man in India. But Tom Shorters passed away such and such a day in Delhi or something. Will you go to India next year in charge? Or it was the same year. Well, from the bloody junior riding boy to Burra Sahib, you know, big boss. All the other shippers, 6 or 7 of them, oh, they've been going there for 40 years. And he was this bit of a lad they had to contend with. They were all very happy, treated me very well. But I was first man on the boat. Coming home, I cleaned my orders up and sold all the horses far ahead of them. I might be I'm only guessing this, I might be the only man in Australia that sold horses to Afghanistan, to Kabul, K-A-B-U-L. Those horses had to go over the Khyber Pass, one horse at a time. They told it me, but I don't see this. I authorised them loaded onto the train in Calcutta, but they had to go the Khyber Pass one horse at a time, and it was that steep. 2 men leading him and another man behind him to keep him up. But however, where did I get to about the, well, yeah, would I go to India next year in charge? So that's when I went to India for the next 6 years after that.
You went backwards and forwards to India? You went backwards and forwards from Australia to India for the next 6 years?
I had...
6 or 7 years you went to India.
Yes.
From Australia to India each year?
Eh?
From Australia to India each year you went backwards and forwards?
Yes.
Selling horses?
I had one Christmas up in Darjeeling.
Mm.
And I was up to Darjeeling. A man and his wife used to come down every year to buy a hack or whatever it was. And all of them wanted me to go up. So eventually I went up. Got in the train at Howrah, that's the main station. And when you get halfway up there, you've got to change train again. And when I got out of the train, another young fellow come up to me. He said, "Are you going further on, are you up to Darjeeling?" Well, he said, "How about going me halves in a taxi? I want to go up there." So we got a taxi to go up to Darjeeling. Yeah. One place you go under yourself twice.
Yeah.
You follow? And however, when I get to Darjeeling, I'd rung this man and told him what time my train arrived there. So the only place I could meet him was go to the railway station. You follow? And when I got to the railway station, he wasn't there. And something had gone wrong. I said, "How far is Tukvar Tea Estate?" "Oh, it's just down there." But it was 4 miles downhill. So I walked down, I got a coolie, put my porter on, he put it in his head and walked ahead of me. But never try walking 4 miles down bloody hill. However, when I get there, his wife, I knew her quite well, come out and met me. "Oh, Mr. Pascoe, come on in. Didn't you meet Peter?" No, and however, I went in, big log fire burning there, you know, winter time there. I sat down and brought me a cup of tea and all that. When I got up, I couldn't bloody well walk. Oh, geez, I couldn't walk for two days. For walking downhill. So that was Darjeeling. I could look out the window. I forget what that direction was, to Mount Everest. You could see it. They said it was 40 miles or something. But however, I want to show you a lot of photos too.
Yeah. Wait a minute now. What did you do with the property back here at Idesville or Serratitis? While all this was going on, what did you do with that?
Now, just a second. When I came back from India the first time, first of all, as a groom, I got £2.10 a week going to India. That was 7 days a week, 14, 15 hours a day. That was nothing. But when I was made boss, I got £10 a week. So when I came back the first time, I did have a bit more money than usual. And I bought a block of land, 800 acres, right, freehold, and fenced in.
Where at?
Approximately 1.25 miles from Serratus railway station. Then I had to build a home, I had to build a house. So I looked about and I found a house for sale between Mundubbera and Gayndah, down the river, not round the plateau way, on an old mining place there. I had a few head of cattle here that I dealt the fellow. I gave him the cattle and I gave him the house. Well, I got a carpenter and myself, went down and pulled it down, carted it into the railway station, 1/2 mile away, trucked it to Serratus. Then with 2 horses in a dray, I carted that timber from Serratus up to where I built it. When I got it built, I wanted to name the place. Now in Calcutta, between the Remount Depot and the racecourse, I used to go quite often, either going to the races or taking horses down to show people or something, and native buildings all the way. But I came across about 1 acre of land, and a beautiful home. Oh, this stood out, you know. Belvedere. So when I went back to the depot that night, I said to the sergeant there, "What's that building? Belvedere." Oh, he said, "That's the Viceroy's residence." So I liked the name. When I bought this 800 acres and shifted the house up onto it, I get a dictionary. I want to see what Belvedere means. Top of a hill, a fine view. Well, I built right on top of the hill and I could bloody near see Monterey. You could see for miles. Where could you get it? And top of the hill, a fine view. So that's Belvedere. Right. 800 acres. So, between these milk runs and going to Calcutta and buying horses, I bought the next door property for £1,000 of Aussie Smith. Well, another year or so, I bought the next door property of Tom Horn. That had a dairy going on it then.
Did that Tom Horn marry a girl, Ivory? That Tom Horn?
Yes.
Joe.
Jessie?
Joe.
Jessie? Jessie?
Joe, I think her name was.
All right.
Yeah, was that the girl, did that Tom Horn marry Jessie Ivory?
Her name wasn't Jessie.
Tom, all right.
Her name wasn't Jessie.
She was an Ivory.
Joe, they always call her Joe.
Joe who?
I don't know.
Was she Joe Ivory?
I
No.
have no idea.
No, you don't
Sorry,
know. Right.
no idea.
Okay. One of the Horns
Yeah, but
married an Ivory. Jessie Ivory.
no,
Right.
no. Righto, after a year or so, I was come on. A couple more years after that, I bought Jack Donohue's. They're all joining, mind you. Well, when I say joining, they're all joining, but there's a road, in a two-chain road. You follow?
Yeah.
After a year or two, I bought Madson's. Now, let me tell you, it perhaps takes a bit of believing. They say he's a lost this block. I selected a block in the early days. You had to have £5 those days to select any block on the upper burner. You had nothing more to pay for 12 months. Then you had a bit of rent and a little bit of rates. Rates wasn't much, only horse and dray or some, you know.
Yeah.
But, okay. Now, you couldn't sell that block of land for 5 years. You had to live on it most of the time. Right. I shifted on it and I built a hut and I fenced in 25 acres on the river for a horse paddock and a hut. Then I get this job going to India. A year or so afterwards, the Crown Land Ranger used to come round quite often, checking all these fellows. That Clary Hamilton was Crown Land Ranger. I knew him quite well, and he knew me. I met him somewhere one day, and he said, "Charlie, you're not living on that block, eh?" Well, there's no good trying to tell him a bloody lie, because he knew all about me going to India. If I hadn't have been going to India, I could have said, "Oh, well, I wasn't there the day you were there," or somewhere else. But he knew I was going to India. And he said, "Now, I'll give you a bit of good advice, young fellow." Well, thank you, Mr. Hamilton. I will always take advice or something to that effect, you see. And he said, "You surrender that block, or they'll forfeit it through you not living on it." Well, that beat me a bit. I said, "But, Mr. Hamilton, what's the bloody difference? I lose it either way." "Yes," he said, "but wait a while, I tell you." He said, "Later on you want another block." He said, "And there's two years in for it. It comes up by ballot. Oh, there's 2 years in for it. And if they forfeited that on you, that's a mark against you. This other fella is a clean skin, you see, he gets it. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton." So I forfeited. Now I'd done me £5, and I bought it back afterwards for £6,000. People lying bastards, but it was God's bloody truth. I done me £5 and the hut and the bit of fencing, and bought it back for 6,000.
How many years later?
That's well. It had a home and a dairy. Yeah, but when you tell it to somebody, they tell you that is a fact. Then I bought routers, Vince router. Then I bought Jack router. I started off, in between that, I bought my mother's 2 blocks. And, okay, I had 4 dairies going at once. Share people on them. And there was often a little bit of what you call them, you had to apply to the government for permission and all this and that. And there was often objections to me holding them, you know what I mean? One block, before the objection, when I mentioned the block, there was still, it wasn't freehold, but it was becoming freehold. There was still $500 or $600, pounds, not dollars though. Still, they had to pay to freeholder. So we wouldn't put our papers in. I gave them a cheque for that money. They went up to Monto, put it in. As soon as they got word back it was freehold, well, they couldn't stop me holding it. Do you get me?
Yeah.
But otherwise, I beat them to it. And a lot of them wondered how the hell it was done. They knew it wasn't freehold, but found out how much was left to pay on it. But however, McTaggart's rung up one day. Charlie, would you sell Belvedere? And I said, well, you should know me very well. I'll sell any bloody thing at all, bar my wife. That's the words I said. If you got enough money. And now they took the offer for it for Noel Howard. You remember Noel, don't you?
Yes.
Eh?
Yes. Yes, I know now.
Yeah, they took the offer. Evidently they had just sold his quite a big cattle station on the border of the Northern Territory and way in the back of Mount Isa there. A very big property, and he wanted to come in closer. They took the offer for him. Right. A week or so later, they rung up and said, Charlie, would it make any difference to you if we, I just don't know how they put it, if Barney Joyce had a look at it? And I said to him what happened to the other fellow. I didn't know Noel Howard. I know him well since, of course. And however, Barney Joyce came out. Now anybody that came to look at my place, I'm only prepared to run them round for an hour or two to get an idea if they're interested. We've had people come here, I'll run them round for an hour or two, but if they're interested, they've got to come back. I made Joyce's come back for 3 days to see every part of it. I don't want them 12 months later come back and say this bee didn't tell us that bad country was here, that broken fence there. They got to see, I'll show them the best of it and I'll show them the worst of it. So, bring their own saddles, I'll supply the horses. So Barney and Joan, his wife, Ralph, and his wife, the 4 of them came out. I said to the agent, what about the cattle? Oh no. Like, Barney didn't want my cattle. He had the best cattle in there, and didn't want my cattle. Oh, that's okay, that's okay. I said, that's a fact. If I'll ride them around for half a day, they've got to come back for 3 days. So righto, we only gone about an hour and a half, and we run across 20 or 30 cows and calves. The agent and I was riding ahead, looked back, the 4 of them poking among these cattle, turning them round a bit. We went on across the road into other country. I run into about 30 or 40 cows and calves. By the time we got way up near the corner, they were still going through these cows. They bought 350 off me. But I gave them 3 years terms for them. And the black fellas, they were all dark, we knew all, swore that they were the best cattle on Idril. That's where Idril Station, Santa's built up for my bloody good Brahma cows. That's where they're saying, not their old Hereford herd, don't worry. That's where they built their Santa herd. And however, are you waiting, Irene?
No, I'm just getting it ready.
You switch that off.
Charlie, you were just going to tell us a story about the Jersey cow.
We used to take about 3 Jersey cows to India every year for an order. Now the BISN company, the shipping company, never charged us because we supplied milk for the boat going over. They were free. Now the buyer over there said, could we buy a Jersey bull, a young Jersey bull? He only had native cattle there. Down the no-go one day, old Ted Doyle's, I saw about, a bull. He was perhaps about 15 months old, but about 9 months big. But he was a good colour and quiet and been potted. And however, did he want to sell him? Yes, he would sell him. I don't know, I gave him £2 or £3 a pound, I forget exactly. It wasn't much for a Jersey Mickey that size. Okay, I put him in the truck with other 3 cows and trucked him down to Pinkenbar, put him on the boat, and everything's going right. They're tied up on top deck, the cattle. Now, after we leave Townsville, the chief officer comes round. We're then set for Calcutta. He wants a count of everything on board, all the horses and whatever else. So, got the 3 cows, they're free. And he said, you've got a bull. I said, a bull, chief? Yes, he said, he's tied up on deck. Oh, I said, that's old Betty's calf. A calf. And I said, how old is he? Oh, I said, he must be 6 or 7 months now. And he couldn't understand it. I said, Chief, I presume you're a married man with a family. You know how old a baby before it gets teeth? Well, as a matter of fact, he said, yes, I've got a family. So, I said, well, look, Chief, I put this hand over his bottom tooth and lifted it up. I said, look, he hasn't even got a sign of a tooth yet. Marvelous, he said. Well, he was free. You get it?
Yeah, they don't get teeth on top, only on the bottom.
Yeah. You follow? I put my hand over there and lifted his shoulder, his top teeth. I said, you know what a baby, he 9 or 10 months when he gets a tooth. He said, this fellow don't show a tooth. Yes. So there you are now.
Coming back to this story about India now, coming back to this story about India, and you were saying before about, how many years did you go backwards and forwards to India?
The 7th year.
7 years. And then you came back here, and then you came back here to Serratitis.
Go on buying horses,
Yes.
buying horses, ready for the next ship.
Yes.
I would get back here April, about,
Yes.
sometime May. But then the next boat would go in October, November.
Right.
See?
Yeah.
Now, I was always buying for myself and selling to the firm. I wasn't buying for the firm. I had a fixed price with the firm, and well, I could buy at my own price.
Yes. Anyway, you gave all this away, and you came back. You gave all this away, and you came back into the Serratus area, and you took up what? You built a home up there on that hill.
Well, I ended up with just under 7,000 acres of freehold country. I had run up to 4 dairies on with share people on my own property. But the fact goes this: when I came here in 1923, with that £2.15 that I'd sold that heifer for, by the time I got back to Rockhampton, I had to go and get a job to get tucker. I came here with absolutely bloody nothing. Now that's just the story.
After India.
Oh, after in India, well, of course.
You had money?
Well, I'd spent it all by buying property. You follow?
Yes.
I just had to keep a certain amount of money to buy the horses. Then before I went to India, well, I was paid for them, of course, by the firm. But I was buying property. I mean, if I bought a property, if I didn't have the money, I knew I'd have it in 6 months' time, and I would either borrow it or make arrangement or something of that.
Now tell me, where did you meet your wife?
My wife?
Yes.
Very local.
Yes. What year?
30.
Right.
We were married in 33.
How did you meet her?
At the Serratus railway station. At the Serratus railway station.
What was happening? What was happening at the station?
Well, we had to go there for our mail or whatever, train time or something.
Did they have property here?
Yes. Down the river, her father and mother. All right, how many brothers and sisters?
I've got 4 of each. Had four of each. 4 sisters and 4 brothers. 9 of us.
The Becks, they were timber people. Broad axe, crosscut saw. You know what that means: yard building, dip building, hard work.
Hard work, yeah.
Very hard work. And Irene's mother's only did a couple of years, well over the 100. So the father's been dead quite a few years.
And did they select land here?
Eh?
Did they select land here?
Select land?
Yes.
Yes. About 2 miles down. Incidentally, not this block, not the next block, the 3rd block down the river. Yes. But they gave that away and bought another block up this road opposite Belvedere.
That made it convenient for you, did it?
Very, very. Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
So,
Of course, no motor cars those days. Oh yes, I might have had a motor. I think I bought my first motor car in about 1930.
what was it?
A Whippet, single, one-seated Whippet.
It's a sports car.
Have you got a photograph of it?
I wouldn't have, no.
No.
I wouldn't have.
Where did you live?
Huh?
Where did you live?
Well, on this block of country that my father selected.
With your wife? You lived there with your wife? After you were married, where did you...
No, on Belvedere. On this first block of land I built, where I called Belvedere, That's where I built this house that I brought up the other side of Mundubbera.
Right.
And then in 1952, we built a big home at Belvedere. It's still there. A very big, modern sort of a home on Belvedere. And that's where David Fates, Barney, Joyce and Joyce bought it.